In most parts of the ancient world, marriage was meant to symbolize transition, a new family, a new home, a new future. It was often surrounded by celebration, music, gifts, and rituals meant to unite two bloodlines. But inside Sparta, marriage was never simply about love, family, or tradition. In Sparta, everything served one purpose: the state. From the moment Spartan girls were born, their lives were shaped differently from women in most Greek cities. They were trained physically. They were taught discipline. They were expected to become strong, healthy, and capable, not because Sparta believed in equality, but because strong women were expected to produce stronger sons. In Sparta, even motherhood was political. By the time a young woman reached marriage age, she already understood something most outsiders never did. Her body was not entirely her own. Her future was not entirely her own. And the man she would marry was often chosen not for affection, but for bloodline, military strength, physical health, and the long-term interests of the city itself. To outsiders, Spartan women appeared unusually powerful. They could own property. They could speak openly. They moved through society with a confidence that shocked many visitors from places like Athens. But power can be deceptive, because influence does not always mean freedom, and nowhere was that more visible than on the night of marriage. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains of Laconia, preparations began. Families stopped celebrating. Servants stopped speaking. Even music disappeared, because what was about to happen was not meant to feel romantic. It was meant to feel transformative. And for generations of Spartan brides, that transformation began with fear. As darkness settled over Sparta, the celebrations ended far earlier than outsiders would have expected. There were no musicians playing through the night, no overflowing tables, no drunken guests laughing beneath torchlight. In Sparta, marriage was not a public display of affection. It was preparation. And once the final guests had gone, the bride was taken away. Not by her husband, not by her family, but by older women who had gone through the same ritual years before. These women did not comfort her. They did not explain what would happen next, because in Sparta, explanations were considered weakness. Experience was the teacher. The young bride was brought into a small stone chamber, away from the noise, away from witnesses, away from everything familiar. The room was simple: a wooden stool, a clay lamp, a bronze mirror, and silence. Then the transformation began. Her long hair, something that in much of the ancient world symbolized femininity, beauty, and status, was cut short, not trimmed, removed, falling in heavy strands to the stone floor. For many Spartan girls, this was the moment fear became real, because hair was more than appearance. It was identity. And now, that identity was being stripped away. Next came the clothing. The ceremonial garments disappeared. Jewelry was removed. Soft fabrics were replaced with a rough cloak, simple, practical, almost masculine in appearance. When she finally looked into the bronze mirror, she no longer looked like a bride. She looked like something else, something unfamiliar, something Spartan. Ancient writers would later describe this ritual with confusion, even discomfort. Some believed it was symbolic. Others believed it prepared women for the military culture of Spartan men. Some thought it was psychological, designed to break expectations before building new ones. Perhaps it was all of those things, or perhaps it served another purpose. Because Spartan men did not move freely through domestic life the way other Greek husbands did. Many still lived in military barracks. Many spent most of their adult lives surrounded by soldiers, not families, and so the bride was not being prepared only for marriage. She was being prepared to enter a world built by warriors, and for the first time in her life, she would enter it alone. By the time the transformation was complete, the young bride no longer looked like the girl who had entered the chamber. Her long hair was gone. Her jewelry had disappeared. Her ceremonial clothing had been replaced by something rough, simple, almost military in appearance. And now she waited, alone. The clay lamp burned quietly against the stone wall, casting moving shadows across the chamber. Outside, Sparta remained silent. No music, no laughter, no celebration, only darkness. And somewhere beyond those walls, the men of Sparta continued living as they always had, in barracks, training grounds, and military quarters where brotherhood often mattered more than family. For Spartan men, marriage did not immediately change that. A husband did not simply leave military life and move into domestic comfort. He remained a soldier, first, always, and that changed everything. Because the man who would enter that chamber tonight would not arrive like a groom. He would arrive like a warrior crossing enemy lines. Ancient accounts suggest that many Spartan husbands entered secretly, sometimes after dark, sometimes after military meals, sometimes after hours spent training or sleeping beside fellow soldiers. Some entered quietly, some without speaking. Some left before sunrise, and in many cases, no one was meant to know, not friends, not neighbors, sometimes not even other members of the household, because early Spartan marriage was not designed around shared life. It was designed around secrecy, discipline, and control. The bride sat in silence, listening to every sound outside the chamber. Footsteps in the distance, armor shifting, voices fading, then nothing. For what felt like hours she waited, and waiting can be more terrifying than action, because action has shape. Waiting has imagination. Every story she had heard from older women now returned to her in fragments. Warnings, looks, silences that now made sense. Then footsteps, slow, measured, heavy, not the sound of a husband, the sound of a soldier. And when the door finally opened, he did not enter smiling. He did not speak. He simply stepped out of the darkness and into her future. For outsiders, marriage marked the beginning of a shared life. A husband and wife would build a home, create routines, raise children, and gradually become the center of one another's world. But inside Sparta, that was not how marriage worked. Not at first. Not for years. When the young bride looked at the man standing in the doorway, she was not looking at someone who had come to stay. She was looking at someone who would soon leave, because Spartan men did not immediately move in with their wives. In many cases, They continued living in military barracks well into adulthood, sometimes until their 30s, sleeping, eating, training, and fighting beside other soldiers while their wives remained elsewhere. To modern eyes, this seems impossible. To Sparta, it was normal. The warrior stepped into the chamber without ceremony. No vows, no blessings, no words designed to calm fear, because Spartan culture believed that comfort weakened discipline, emotion weakened clarity, attachment weakened readiness, and readiness was everything. Ancient writers describe these meetings as brief, secretive, and carefully hidden. Some husbands entered only under darkness. Some stayed only a short time. Some left before dawn, returning to barracks before other soldiers noticed their absence. And for many young brides, this became their new reality. Days of waiting, moments of connection, then silence, again, and again, and again. At first, some believed this was temporary, a test, a phase before real marriage began. But older women knew better. This was not a phase. This was the system. Because Sparta did not believe marriages should grow through comfort. It believed they should survive through scarcity. And scarcity changes people. It sharpens emotion, intensifies desire, creates longing, and perhaps most importantly, it keeps people obedient. Because when personal life remains incomplete, duty remains first. The state understood that, and the state designed accordingly. Even children, if they came, were not seen purely as sons and daughters. They were future soldiers, future mothers, future assets, which meant that even the most intimate parts of Spartan life were never entirely private. They belonged to Sparta. By the time most Spartan women fully understood marriage, they also understood something far more uncomfortable. Marriage had never been designed for them, not completely, not emotionally, not personally, and not even romantically. It had been designed for continuity, for bloodline, for survival, for the future of Sparta itself. Every ritual, every separation, every moment of waiting, every night of uncertainty, every silent reunion, it all served one purpose: to produce stronger children, children who would one day serve the same system that had shaped their parents. This is why Spartan women were trained physically from childhood, why they were encouraged to run, wrestle, and strengthen their bodies, why they were expected to speak with confidence, stand with discipline, and show little fear. Not because Sparta wanted independent women, but because Sparta wanted stronger heirs, and stronger heirs required stronger mothers. Ancient observers from places like Athens often viewed Spartan women with confusion, even discomfort. They saw women speaking publicly, owning property, moving freely, and exercising openly. To outsiders, it looked like freedom. But freedom can sometimes be another form of design, because the state that gave Spartan women visibility also gave them purpose, and purpose, when assigned by others, is not always choice. Some women accepted it, some embraced it, some found pride in it, and some likely never questioned it at all. Because when an entire society teaches the same truth from birth, that truth stops feeling imposed. It starts feeling natural, and perhaps that was Sparta's greatest strength. Not its soldiers, not its shields, not its armies, but its ability to make duty feel like identity. So when people ask what happened to the brides of Sparta, the answer is not that they were simply married. The answer is far more unsettling. They were transformed, not into wives, but into part of the machine.